T1s. You got Metros with T1 backhaul, but then they got AEMs in them, where the DOM still has the T1s terminated, and then Ethernet to the AEM. You've got a handful of them where they actually weren't enough slots, so they pulled the DOM out, moved the T1s over to the AEM itself. Then you get into the weird ones. You got your RBSs, where you have Ethernet backhaul, real Ethernet backhaul, where there's a couple of them where the RBS has voice with Ethernet backhaul, but you still have the Metro cell sitting there with a voice T1 for keeping the Metro cell alive and T1s to the DOM. You've got them where they did the daisy chain to where EVDO, legacy EVDO, and the legacy CM or daisy chain back into the SP210 where it's Ethernet backhaul. Then you've got the same thing, but Metro cell has EEGS on it. Then you get into, you've got the SIU sites where voice is going to be on the RBS, EVDO might be on the RBS as well, EVDO might be on the Metro cell still. The biggest difference is the Ethernet backhaul and the SIE backhaul. For where it comes into the switch, where the routing takes place, if it's Ethernet backhaul or microwave backhaul, when it comes back into the building, it's coming into the IP-AG router. All the routing takes place there. So even for like the couple where you have the legacy DOMs on Ethernet backhaul into the SP210, those DOMs are routing inside the IP-AG. They're not using the 10K. On your SIU sites, your voice and your EVDO, all the routing takes place inside the legacy 10K router. It eventually, to get out to where it needs to go, whether it's to the BSC, to the RC, the AEC, whatever, it goes from the 10K to the IP-AG, but there's no defined routing for that in particular site in the IP-AG in those configurations. Everything is done, managed on the 10K. So pretty much Ethernet, IP-AG, SIU, 10K. We don't have enough time to do both, so let's do the dirty, ugly SIU, because that seems to be the ones that are breaking the most of late. All right. First and foremost, if you don't have it, everyone should have OSS access through Citrix, right? Do you know how to set it up to where you can command line into it through Facility Manager or whatever?
No.
The same way you set up a BSM, you're still going to SSH into the box. You're still going to have to jump through. You just have to put the IP address in. For Fort Worth 2, it's either 99.207.226.212 or 213.
Okay.
The reason I'm telling you it's very good to do this, especially the field guys, don't want to have to launch OSS in the slow-ass GUIs. People like me that just hate GUIs. You can use Amos to get into equipment, but also you just need to run a quick check to see if something's integrated, or you just want to run a quick check on an LTE bill, or you want to check alarms on a CDMA dual XMU, DMFRM. You can command line into it, run a command to check alarms without ever having to step through Citrix. If you need to dig deep, I still get into Citrix and look through the GUIs and try and finagle my way to what I'm actually trying to find. But just for a quick and easy. And it's also a nice, quick, easy way to find out the IP addresses for everything, so you can check your routing. Whatever yours is named at. We good right there? You got it? The reason this is good to have, there's one nice simple command where, for example, I'm going to go ahead and get into 10K, pick a site. We'll just use a false one, just because Bridget knows false one.
So I noticed you're in City Manager. Can you do all this in?
Your CRT?
Yeah.
All right. This is where eventually I would think you guys would want to get the 10Ks and IP access. We're going to have to do something a little more formal to where we can actually show y'all how to get around in it and use it for the field people. But, for example, on a standard site, let me just.
You want some paper?
I got a bunch of paper. This is
Oh, okay.
All right. For example, on a standard site, all your descriptions in the 10K and in the IPX is listed by the Cascade number. The IPX, why I don't know. They're using the Cascades instead of the Silly that they're using everywhere else. So you have to be able to jump between the two. You can tell just looking at these. These are standard interfaces for regular DOMs. Okay? The reason I say that, if I could type,
Mm-hmm.
guess what kind of site those would be?
Yes, I use.
Pretty easy to tell the difference between the two, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Regular, SIU. Kind of easy to tell the difference. On the 10Ks, there's 3 commands you need to know, besides being a trace route. Show, interface, description, pipe, include, cascade. We'll use 23 XT 553. For Bridget and Taj, if you use EMU and actually follow the procedure where you run your pre-checks and your post-checks,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the first commands in there on the pre-checks and
Mhm.
post-checks.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, say you're going to add a carrier on a site that you don't know has been converted to an SIU. When you do your pre-check, it should pop up and show SIU, and it should be a triage. This shit ain't happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? No need to even build it in because you know it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
If you run an EMU script in on an SIU site,
Mhm.
you just killed that site. The configurations are different. The configurations are being hand done for SIU sites. The functionality is not in EMU, and last I checked, they don't plan on putting it in.
Hmm.
So show interface description, right? You can see, hey, it's supposed to be a max of 18 ones. They built 9 in, but only 7 of them are actually up. Pretty easy way to tell if your T1s are up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to give you your serial interfaces. In other words, that's going to correlate that back to the DAX port that they're tied to for those T1s. The last thing it gives you is your multi-link number. So then you can do a show, run, interface, multi-link 100-299. That's going to give you the 10K side IP address for that multi. A multi-link is just a point-to-point link. If we're 113.2.39.9 on the 10K, guess what the IP address is for the SIU? Anybody?
10?
113.2.39.10. So guess what? Just looking at that right there, I now have my IP address where I can log into this SIU. A normal DOM, remember you also get an endpoint IP address for your multi-link. You got your node. You got your, this would be your multi-link, then you'd have an endpoint for your node IP of the DOM. Notice that's gone. See what I'm saying? The third and best command, even though it's not going to make sense right now,
Okay, so why are you putting that in since it can only hold 8 and 9 are built? So one of
that's
those,
that great quality control by the OEM.
right? So they are going to be able to bring up one of those down.
Next thing we want to do is do a show run pipe include 113.2.39.10. Why do I want to do 10?
That's
Because
your
you know that the next one will be the next one.
that's
Well,
the SIU.
9 is my interface in the 10K.
That's the SIU.
Where am I going to route everything to? I'm going to route it to the SIU, right?
Yeah.
So I want to look at what's being routed to the SIU. This one takes a minute. It's all static routing, and everything is a /29/30 or /32 subnet, which
Okay.
means /32 subnet, one IP address, like a DOM node IP, the ones you actually SSH into, that's /32 subnet. The loopback address for an SP210, where you can log into the SP210, is a /32. A /30 subnet is a point-to-point link, two usable IP addresses. So in other words, the 10K to the SIU, this .252 is the same thing as saying a /30. There's two IP addresses associated. The third one that we'll use is this 248, which would be a /29 subnet. That means there's up to 6 usable IP addresses. So like in this case, you can either IP calculator it, or if you just know it, 48 would be our subnet ID, which means our usable IPs we're routing towards there would be 10.224.6.49, 50, 51, 52, 53, and 54. We don't know what exactly they are, but we are going to, but we know all those are being routed towards this SIU. Does that make sense? All right, so looking at this right here, we're going to guess it has legacy EVDO on it. Okay? So look right here, 255s, all 255s. That's going to be /32 subnets or only one usable IP. So 10, 140, 246, 138, that's going to be one of our DOMs. 10, 142, 149, 221 is going to be another DOM. Don't know which one yet, is F1 or F2, but that's our two DOM IPs. See this one down here at the bottom with all 255s? 113.255. I can tell you right now, just by seeing that 113.255, that's our SP210. That's out at that site. In other words, the box after the SIU, that's its IP address. Follow me?
Okay, so the 255, the one that ends in 255, is only
Just one IP
One
address.
in-
It's a
okay.
direct, like a node IP. All these other ones, think about it. What do we have to have a link to? LTE dual, the CDMA dual, the SP210, the DBA, the CM inside the DBA, the CM inside the Metro cell. To daisy chain those DOMs, you got to have from the SP210 to Ethernet 1 on the first DOM, from Ethernet 2 on the first DOM to Ethernet 1 on the second DOM, from Ethernet 2 on the second DOM to the CM. Everybody's going to need an IP address. That's where all these come into play. Where they've messed these up so far is, like, say one of these right here that's a 252. So /30 subnet. There's two usable IPs. So my usable IPs are going to be .73 and .74. They'll assign one side as a .73. Say this is on one of your doles. Okay? They'll assign the SP210 side the .73, but then they'll assign the dole itself .75. If not within that subnet, they can't talk to each other. The only way you're going to be able to make that work would be change that to a 248 to where it would then encompass the right number of IP addresses.
And the 248 encompasses 6.
6 usable. That's the type of mistakes they're making. That, or for your DOM to work, legacy DOM to work, in this configuration with Ethernet backbone, the RNC has to be able to talk to the DOM node IP, to home. You know, where you check, do a show node and it says up, you show your RNC list and it shows them all its home. That's the node IP talking to the RNC. That Ethernet 1/0/1, where traffic's actually coming into it, the RNC has to be able to talk to that IP address too. Otherwise, yeah, it can talk to the node and they can home to each other. But if it can't talk to Ethernet 101, it can't push data to the actual card. They've done that a lot. The other thing, say on one of these DOM IPs, they forget to put this one routing statement in here. The DOM's never going to be able to home because it can't route to it.
Okay.
All right.
So you said 252 was 2 ended or 3 ended?
252 is /30, 2 usable.
So this is stuff you have to go in and,
All these SIU sites, like that Sealy site,
yeah,
that do it. All right. OSS side, just to get us another piece, and then we can start drawing our pretty picture. There's one easy command. If we look on this 10K right here, you know that Sealy in OSS that it uses for the site name, for
Mhm.
LTD and CDMA? That's the same Sealy code, just minus the BBU, blah, blah, blah. So if I take that information right there to OSS, or you remember in Sealy app earlier, we looked at the RFM mode, and you had the managed object pointing to OSS. From OSS, if I do /op/ericsson/edc/util/bin/list right there, if I gret for that silly code, guess what? $10299 is going to be that same 5 digits BSM using, so I know that's my first dual, first CDMA dual. There's its IP address. This 12452, that's going to be the 800 dual. 20299, that's going to be the second DBA. LTE, blah, blah, blah. We know that's the LTE dual, right? And then this BTN01, look at the IP, 113.239.10. Didn't we just say that's the SIU? Look, blah, 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 BTN01. Blah, 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 BTN01. So if I wanted to log into one of these doles, you know how you can do Amos to log into a dole? From here, all you have to do is type Amos. And the IP address. And you're in. Just like you're connected to the front of it. Looks the same, doesn't it?
Now we won't use angles in
LT
the,
all.
we won't use angles in the switch, right? We will.
All. There's no alarms on it. Quick, easy way to check it, right? We know that our SIU is that .10 number. Guess what? You can still do a ping 113.2.39.10. It's alive. Okay, can I get all the way to the 10K to that interface, which was .9? I sure can. Nice, easy way to jump from box to box. Get out of there.
You did the LTE, what's the LTL
For what?
for the Amos? That was the command.
L-
LTL.
Yeah, to load all the nodes. And then I just
Would
did
it
them
show you
all.
IP address on there if you pulled it? You didn't know the IP address
For the dole? That right there. There's your second dole, there's your 800 dole, there's your first dole, there's your LTE dole, and there's your SIU, and all their IP
If
addresses.
you didn't know it, I mean, how would you pull it up?
Right there. Slash off Ericsson, DDC, util, bin, list me, pipe graph, and then the first part of that silly code. Another key piece of information. You see after this node model, blah, 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 all these numbers? Yeah? You see how the 800 dole doesn't have anything after it? It doesn't have all those numbers on this one? That one's never been integrated. If it's been integrated, it's going to have all this crap out at the end of
So there's two that have not been integrated, right?
it. The SIU is never going to be integrated. It's just it's a managed object on the OSS just for alarming. That's it.
Okay, so it's not going to be.
But your doles should be integrated. 800, of course, give or take, if they're actually doing it at this point. Same way.
Okay, quick question. So in doing all that we just did, what is it done for as far as troubleshooting? So
We're
so we,
almost there.
oh,
All right. So you can. You're there. All right. You're in OSS.
Yep.
Do the same thing I just did. Bridget get in Fallstone 10K1 and run those 3 commands. And then y'all can sit behind her so I can actually draw a pretty picture and actually not have to look through my own writing to see it. And then you can see how it all kind of ties together. You need
When you say I'm supposed to be in a Command Explorer,
You can do it through Silly Manager if you're online.
what's
You know your OSS password?
yeah, I'm
Zilla
gonna call you back.
Manager?
I'm in
I
training.
don't think I have the right IPs for it.
All right, just
I'm
open
in
it
training.
again.
I'm gonna have to call you
Open
back.
your connection directory.
Alrighty. Did you call the people?
From there,
Call the
All right, just highlight one of these.
Not really, not right now.
Doesn't
Well,
matter
yeah, I
which
guess so.
Change that to Fort Worth 2 OSS.
Call that number that's on your that's on that email. Alrighty. And get your score. Okay, I gotta go now. All right,
So
bye-bye.
Westland, just say Fort Worth to it. OSS.
Yep. I put that IP on.
Okay. I can't because my RFI has knocked me out.
Did you
And
get the region and all that stuff in
If you just add them, oh, are you talking over here?
there? Right here? See on mine? Do south, I got south, but I don't have any drop downs or anything else.
If you add, like, type something in here and hit apply, or just whatever. I got lazy and just from where I copied my Houston, hit apply. It's just a way where you can add filters to your directory. I had sat and played around with it, but then I never finished it. And then it changed your username and password to what it needs to be and hit apply.
Oh.
So hit apply. Now hit connect.
That's just your OSS password.
So now, like for example, here we're still in OSS. We can SSH admin at 113.2.39.10, and it'll get us into the SIU. We know that's the SIU IP, right?
Yes.
So admin password is hidden, and guess what? Now we're in the SIU. It's yet another box that likes question marks. It's just weird with its command structure. So, like, you want to see everything built on it, you do a git containment, stn equals 0. And that'll give you every mode built on that. Like we saw there was 9 T1s built in the 10K, right?
Mhm.
There's only 7 T1s built on the SIU.
Huh.
And 7 PPP.
And
But
those
you
are the,
see how it's STN0 and then your T1 interface. STN0 MLPPP equals 1 and then your PPP interface. For all your routes, like how we did all those IP routes, showed all those IP route statements in the 10K.
mhm.
See this routing table with all these IP routes? That's all your IP routes that are in the next box. If you're routing them from the 10K to the SIU, you have to route them from the SIU onto the SP210. In the SP210, you got to route them out to whatever box they need to go to.
So
It's
these
just
are
static routing. If you're telling this box, all you're doing is pushing it to the next box.
okay, and those are all the boxes that are in the equation of
Mhm.
completing.
So the jump box is the one. The jump
So-
box should be
Like, say I wanted to see the routing tables for all these,
Mm-hmm.
you could do a git mo attribute, STN 0, routing table 0, IP route equals all. And you can see, like for example, remember on the 10K, I said this 113.255 at the bottom, that's our SP210 loopback, right? 225.202, IP route, SP210 loopback, destination IP, 113.255.225.202. And see, this one uses the slash nomenclature instead of spelling out the whole 255, 255, 255. And then it's also saying my next hop address is, I want to go to this IP address. So like at the 10K, we're sitting at .9. We're saying I want to take this IP and subnet and route it to .10. Next box is the SIU saying I want to take this IP address and I want to send it to here. Here is going to be the SP210 interface. It's just each box repeatedly telling it where it wants to send. Does that make sense?
So this information is the same information as on the other
It's
page?
just in the SIU's language.
So this will turn you the hop that's going to go to that.
Yeah, the next hop for this guy would be 113.2.39.14.
Okay.
If we log into the SP210, port 16 facing the SIU, your backhaul, its interface is going to be 113.2.39.14. And then it's going to route for the DOM links, for the CM, for the DOM node IPs. See, like that DOM loopback, which would be your node, 10, 140, 246, 138. We knew that 10, 140, 246, 138. It's just going to repeat the same information. So say you can't reach one of your DOMs,
Mhm.
from the 10K, I could do a trace route to that IP address, and I know it should go through an SIU, an SP210. If it's the F1 DOM, that'd be the next. If it's F2 DOM, I'd have to go through F1 first. If you can sit and jump box to box and look at the interfaces and the routing, you can figure out where it's broke. Does that make sense?
Okay, so each one of those DOM IPs have to go hit
It's
all those boxes
it's going to
individually.
something specific. The 10K is basic router. It's just going to route IP addresses. SIU is going to be a little fancier and start naming what I want to do it, like the LTE OANM IP address, 113.253.104. 113.253.104. See what I mean? Everyone is, if you miss one in one box, that thing ain't going to get through, whatever it is. Are you with me?
Yeah, but I guess my question was, because we have two DOM IP addresses, right? So if we're troubleshooting one and we're checking each box, trying to ping or do a trace route for each box. If we're gonna troubleshoot, let's just say we're troubleshooting both of them, do we have to take both of them, each IP address, and hit each box?
Let's do this. We're going to start 10K. 10K is going to talk over T1s too. SIU.
Mm-hmm.
SIU is going to talk to anybody?
The SP2.
All right. Off the SP210,
Goes DBA.
we got F1 DOM, F2 DOM,
Control.
and we got our CM inside the metro cell.
Okay.
We also have our DBA for voice,
Mm-hmm.
the RBS. We've got
LTE.
our DOL XMU, in other words, our CDMA DOL. And we've got our LTE DOL. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
To get back over here, we're going to have to talk to the IPX and eventually get to CBRS for voice,
Okay.
BSC,
Mm-hmm.
and for EBDO, RNCs.
Okay.
That make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Good? Please say no. All right. There's a couple things we can take that we've already figured out.
Mm-hmm.
We know in the 10K, 113.2.39.9,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
SIU right here, 113.2.39.10.
Okay.
With me?
Mm-hmm.
RNCs, we've all been doing it long enough. We should know 10.21.45.32. That's our first Fallstone RNC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, I can flip back over to my little screen right here. See if I can read through that. Scroll it up so I can see it. We're just going to do our first DBA, 113.253.98. 113.2.53.98. Our LTE DOL. Oh, can you put that in the right place?
Mm-hmm.
113.2.53.98. And he was 113.2.53.106. And we also figured out, and I'll go back to that. If we were to do, remember on the Ethernet mode for the site, we did that LS-AF where it shows the BSC IP addresses. What's that also going to give us? Give us our CMIP address and also our BSCIP address,
Okay.
right? So we can figure out that, and that just by looking in the 10K and running one command in OSS, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we can do is, it's kind of, in reality, you're not going to want to sit and trace out every one of these IP addresses. You're going to look at what parts broke.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In other words, say my EVDO and my metro cell is all up. I don't give a crap about all those IP addresses. If only my DBA is down or only one of my doles is down, I'm only going to be tracing that. That makes, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're just drawing this all out just for the sake of drawing it out.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and pull 299, 553. What was that? Offset. All of the above. $299. This one's up, so I can cheat, not even go out to that Ethernet line. One of y'all should be doing that. All right. So, for example, we know our BSCIP address right here
Mm-hmm.
would be 10.148.192.185.
Mm-hmm.
Our BTS is 10.102.54.78. Our gateway is .77. Who's the gateway for the CN?
Oh, so
77 is the gateway. Who does he have to talk to first? Ethernet 2 on the F2 DOM. So ETH2 1/0/2 we know right now is 10.102.54.77. With me? Alright, so serve minus this 1129, which should give us our DBA and hopefully give us the IP. Oh,
should be 10, right?
with the way the OEM builds shit, probably should have logged in the silly app and did it fine. That's the sad part is you have to do the find and look on a lot of this shit, or you're gonna just be typing search. Try this. Search. Try
Right.
this.
Figure out what,
And then I get the way they're building the new ones, they're putting underscore the cascade ID, and then once they turn them up, get rid of that. What if they forget to get rid of that? Search ain't gonna work on the site number. Alright, so 10.148.92.185. Ah! Yeah, that was something else someone pointed out on these, by the way. Your alarm query command,
Mm-hmm.
like on your RBS,
Yeah, it doesn't.
if you, like say you have an alarm on this channel element on your XCM5, and you did alarm query minus BTS 299, you wouldn't see the alarms. But if you did alarm query minus BTS 10299 and did it specific for the RBS, it'll show it to you. Otherwise, you have to go in Silly app, step out to that mode, do an LSAF, and look at the alarms. It's rather stupid. All right, so our BSC 10, 148, 192, 185, same. They could be both pointing to different traffic ranges, which would be different IPs. Our BTS 10.224.6.50. Our gateway is 49. Who's the first box he talks to? The SP210. So we know that interface is 10.224.6.49. You know you can't read my handwriting. So I mean, just by surfing the site or looking at that Ethernet mode, looking at 10K, looking OSS, you've got most of the pieces already.
Mhm.
To where even if you don't have this field guys right now, you could log into this box. Just by logging into him, you know subtract 1 is going to be my 10K interface to where I can ping at least back that way. Or you could figure out your RNC or your CBRS IP where you could ping or trace route that way to see if you know you're getting there. And you also could go out towards any of the other boxes to see if your path is good. Mainly, like T1, besides doing the check counters and the SIUs, if you check this way, you'll know if you have good continuity. Whether it's an SIU site or an Ethernet site. Just by pinging back towards your gateway. If you're losing packets, something's wrong. Alright, back to our lovely SIU. That get containment to show everything, I do that a lot. I was talking about the counters earlier, where you can see, like if you lose a couple of those T1s, your quality's going to go to crap for voice and e-video. If you do a get counters on a T1, I'm just randomly picking them, it's going to show you your errors, and then you see this change column. It was 6 seconds since I last ran it, 2.4 seconds.
No, so
It'll
it's not-
increment
Yeah.
to where it'll show increments. The best way you can see it on the PPP links, there's my in octets, out octets, in packets, out packets, right? Watch this. 1.09 meg, 931, 9857, 906. You're not going to get 1.5. Just because the T1 is 1.5 doesn't mean you're going to stay on. But if you started seeing your in down at like 200, but all the other T1s are running at 900, there's probably something going on there. Or if you see your errors or your discards start incrementing, pretty good indication there's a problem there. Good? All right. The other,
Were you copying something from the top to the bottom? Are you doing the copy and
on this, just shift, highlight it, hit shift insert.
shift?
The reason I said the DOEMS for the legacy DOMs. All right, we know that our two DOMs or these IPs, whether we're getting it from the 10K or in the SIU right here, where we're showing those same, where'd it go? Like this DOM loopback /32 IPs. We know that's our DOM node IP where we can actually log into it. You just, I mean, going by this, you can say that more likely that's your second DOM.
Mhm.
So we'll go ahead and start with that one and see if it really is our second DOM. But from our EMS, we could SSH, default, enable. How do we find out? What's the quickest, easiest way to find out if this is F1 or F2 DOM? What channel am I on? F2 DOM. Something else handy, in case you know you are remote. Like say you do a surf and you see CEM3 in alarm. Show DOM, OAM action. If you look, there's a ton of these that are handy. Like you can do reset reason to show you the last reason the DOM reset. But you can also do like carrier info, BTS ID, BTS info. I'm in slot 3. BSC name. I'm in false at 10. Ties it together. We good? Alright. Here's your big change for a DOM. One of these, whether it be Ethernet backhaul or SIU, where it's pretending to be Ethernet backhaul. Show interface. Ethernet 1 and 2 are now in use. In other words, you need to change one of these, or you need to pull config bin on something. You need to match your laptop to this instead of setting this to 10.1.1.1. See what I'm saying? Otherwise,
Say one more time.
like you take like Ethernet 1 or 2 and you set it to 10.1.1.1 and your laptop to 10.1.1.2, you need to match to this instead of trying to match this to you. Notice your multi-link. On most of these, it should be gone if they built it right. But in any case, you can see it's down. It's not being used. Ethernet 1's being used, Ethernet 2's being used, and our node IP is being used. So we know this one was F2. Remember we just looking at surf, we saw that it was 77.
Mhm.
Look at Ethernet 2, 77. Right? Now we know Ethernet 1, 10.224.17.194. Our node is 10.146.246.138. Alright. So, pretty different. All your T1s and PVPs and multi-link no longer being a factor. The big change, in every other box, what have we had to do? Route IPs everywhere, right? Show IP route. If you're looking at regular DOM, you're going to have this line right here for the node IP routing to itself, and you're going to have a line for this multi-link IP. That's it. Quite a bit more in one of these. You have a static route, this one right here. This EMS that I'm logged into, the DO EMS, that's the southbound interface on the DO EMS. So it can send OMs and alarms and all that kind of crap back towards the EMS. And look what we're doing to it. We want to take that, anything for that IP, send it out of the 193 is our gateway, out Ethernet 101. Our Ethernet 101 is set to 194. If our gateway is 193, look, we're 194 right here. Who's our gateway? 193. It's going to be right there. See how it all kind of, everybody's going to route everything it needs to route. Same thing for all the RNCs. Our node IP always routes itself, but then you see that first Ethernet 1 IP, 10.224.17, 192/30, route it to 194. We're 194, so we're saying anything destined for that entire subnet. So in other words, 192 is your subnet ID, 193 and 194 are your usable. Push them all to Ethernet 1. And then we have the same thing for Ethernet 2. Anything in that entire subnet, point it to 77, out Ethernet 2. Every DOM is going to have the same, of course the IPs are going to change DOM to DOM, but the same basic ton of ridiculous stack routing in it. Alright, so our other DOM was this guy. We know we're on the F1 DOM. Show interface. Show IP route. This one's got a little more routing, but it's also got to include all the routing for that F2 DOM. Does that make sense? So you still got your EMS server, you still got all your RNCs. For some reason they put secondary RNCs for Westland. Just this one. But then we've also, like our 10.102.54.76/30, route it to 194. In other words, push it out to this next DOM, which that would be this subnet right here. You have to tell each box what you need it to pass on. Now we've got Ethernet 1 is 10.227.18.52. No more dots. And our node is 10.1. 10.224.17.3. What you say, like in this DOM right here, right? Say you take, scroll that down. Say we were to remove that line from routing. What just happened?
You took out the CM.
Yep. CM's at the end of the daisy chain. Site's no longer up. By changing something in the F1 DOM, I can kill the site. And that'd just be go config no IP route 10.102.54.76/30 and right. Site's down.
So when you status it again, it won't show there, or will it show down? It won't show there at all?
That IP route would be gone. My interfaces right here would both show up. My interfaces right here would both show up. But the packets destined for there would hit right here and die. They'd never make it.
So how do you put it back in?
Config IP route 10.102.54.76/30, 10.227.18.49. But I mean, you see, if you miss one line, each box could have an effect. And you think about it, those couple sites like 03733, up towards Magnolia.
Mhm.
The only difference between that, this setup, and that is from right here, you have IP backhaul straight to the IPX. You just don't have those two boxes. This part, it's the exact same. The only thing that changes from Ethernet backhaul to an SIU is from the exit of the SP210 to where it comes into the switch. One's going to be through AT&T getting mucked up onto a big 10 gig circuit with multiple sites that hits the IPAGs. One's going to be a little 3-inch jumper to an SIU and then a bunch of T1 cables back to the 10K. And then eventually getting SIU E-routes, Ethernet E-routes. That's really the only box you'll see a noticeable difference in between the SIU config and a true Ethernet config is on your outbound port on the SP210. The VLANs, the ports used, everything in here is the same with the exception of that one port. On the SIU config, we're about to go into it. The SIU config, that's going to be VLAN 10. If it's true Ethernet, you're going to have two VLANs, one for OANM, like for your SP210 loopback for your dual OANM connections. Then you're going to have bearer paths for your CM, for your DOMs, for your DBAs. If this side had EEGS instead of regular Nirvana EVDO, the only difference would be VLAN 3, which goes towards your EVDO. You cut this off, and VLAN 3 would come towards the DBA along with VLAN 2 for voice. Your config's really not any different. We lost. Good.
Kind of helps you get a better picture of what's,
Let's
what
do
boxes
this.
you jump into.
Let's do the SP210 real quick, and then we can look at it. All right, so 10K, or from logged into the SIU, wherever you want to get it from. We know our IP address, right? So we telnet from OSS into the 210. Hope like hell we can pick the right password, because there's only about 5 areas. SP210 password.
Maybe two.
You got admin, CSR admin, EMS internal sprint, or FPRNEX 112.
Yeah.
What's funny, the EMS internal and the OEM external login have the same password. The OEM external has more permissions. So like the BFD sessions, how to show your bouncing BFD, show your BFD to see if it's bouncing. You can't do it with the EMS internal login, but you can do it with the OEM external. Just more than choking us down.
Admin.
What's that? Look it out to me.
I'll do 'em. I'll show you. All right. The SP210, it's another box. For verifying connectivity, there's really only a couple commands you need to know. Go, config, IP, interface. Show config IP interface is going to show you your interface names and your VLAN names. From what we've done so far, we can figure out which interface goes where. If you logged into this box from scratch to figure out what went out what port,
Mhm.
you'd have to run the other two commands and mash it all together. Management port, on-site, plug in. Loopback, 113.255.225.202. That's the IP I just logged in on. VLAN 2. These VLANs, they're standardized. VLAN 2, voice path. So in other words, VLAN 2 is going to be facing our voice. VLAN 3 is going to be facing EVDO. We look at VLAN 2, for example. Address 10.224.649. We'd already figured out, looking at the site, 10.224.649. VLAN 3 for our data, 10.227.18 and 49. Notice that's a 248 or /29. There's 6 usable IP addresses. So 49 is the subnet. We can use 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55. We're using 52 here. We're using 49 in the SP210. 10.227.18.49. VLAN 4. I always forget 4. 4 is going to be your CDMA doles. So VLAN 4, CDMA doles. If we're 113.253.98, 113.253.97. I'm just going to put .97. Get the point. VLAN 5 and 6 will always point towards your LTE dole. VLAN 5, bearer path, your actual session processing, call processing.
Which dog did you say go to?
5 and 6 go to the LTE dole.
Okay.
5 will be your bearer path, 6 is your OAM. So you can see, like 6, 113.253.106.105. For our voice, I'm not even going to put, we're not using it in this configuration. For our bearer path, we'd have a .73 here, and then something 73. So we'd have 74, 10.54.74, and we'd have 73, which would be VLAN 5 and VLAN 6. Right?
Mhm.
Bearer, OAM,
And the OEM is for alarm.
management.
So when you do the Spirent, so that test, you're actually testing 5 and 6. Is that correct? What did you say?
No. This last one at the bottom, this is where the SIU is different from true Ethernet backhaul. On the SIU, your port facing out towards the SIU is going to be VLAN 10. And you can see 113.239.14. 113.2.39.14. And it's a 252, so we know he's going to be 113.2.39.13. But you remember when we looked in the SIU earlier, the next hop on everything
Mhm.
was dot 14. So from the SIU, the next hop would be dot 14, which would be your interface to the SB210. On the true Ethernet backhaul, this is where it's different. This one port, instead of having VLAN 10, you're going to have a 3-digit and a 4-digit VLAN. You'll have two separate VLANs. If I remember right, the 3-digit VLAN is your bearer path. So for data and for voice. The 4-digit is your OAM. So like these OAM connections to the duals, for example, or the OAM connection, your loopback address to the SP210 would be on that 4-digit VLAN. You also, on those, you'll see it on one of the next two commands. On here, you only have one path. It is what it is. On the Ethernet backhaul, even though it's one fiber leaving the site, eventually somewhere telco splits that into two, so one path goes into each IPAG router. So you get metrics assigned in the SP210, and you get a distance 250 assigned to the alternate path in the IPAG. Toward to say, this is my primary path. If that goes down, then it goes to the higher number. And here, there's no need for metrics. We only have one path. Alright, other than the show IP interface, guess what we've looked at in every other box? Show config, IP, route. And guess what? It's the same thing over and over, just like in any of the other boxes. I'm just going to grab somewhere. For example, class route IP 10.140.246.138. That's our F2 DOM, right? Its gateway is 10.227.18.52, which is the Ethernet 1 on the F1 DOM. So in other words, SP210 is saying, using VLAN number 3, which we already said VLAN 3 is for data, I want to route this IP address to this gateway. In other words, it's going to come into me, I'm going to push it to here. Once it gets to this box, he's going to decide where to route it to. So he's going to have a routing entry to push it to here. Just like every other box, you'll have a ton of routes. And if they mess up a digit, mess up a subnet, it's useless. The problem on these, finding bad subnets, should just be as they're doing conversions. Once everything's done and converted, you're just going to really need to know how to figure these out so you can do your pinks and your trace route, to where you can look for connectivity problems, look for backhaul problems. But if you don't know how it all freaking ties together, you can ping and trace route all you want if you don't know what the hell you're looking at. All right, the third thing in here that's good to know, show config IP ARP-entry, address resolution. This is the thing.
Can you scroll down? What was that again?
Show config IP ARP-entry. You saw on those routes, by the way, that's where I was talking about, see right here, you got VLAN 10, metric 1, metric 1.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to look in a true Ethernet one,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have two interfaces going to IPAG number 1, two interfaces going to IPAG number 2. In other words, two interfaces for each of those VLANs. One set of those IPs is going to have a higher metric than the other. In other words, the one with the higher metric will be the backup. The one with the lower metric is the one I'm actually trying to use. On an SIU, there's one path. It's all just set to metric 1. There's only one way for it to go.
So is that for redundancy?
to the IPA. Your ARP entry, where it's nice, look what it gives us. Physical port on the SP210. So the one thing we didn't know was, can you slide my mouse pointer? Like VLAN 2, for example. Where are we pointing? Port 6. Ah. VLAN 3 is using port 8. VLAN 6, I think he's saying port 1. XMU dual, he's going to be saying port 2. Your backhaul is going to be saying port 16. Your VLANs and your ports generally do not change. They have a set way they do it. Port 1, LTE dual. Port 2, 3, and 4, your CDMA dual. 2 should be your first DBA or first dual. 3 should be your next. 4 should be your 800. Ports 5 through 5, 6, and 7 are for your DBA. 8 through 12 is for this crazy Dom Daisy chain stuff. Port 16 should be your backhaul. You get onto the SB310s where they have more ports. The only thing that really changes is instead of a 16 for your backhaul, it's port 20.
Unless they can exact 19.
Yeah, unless that breaks, then they go to 19. But I mean, basically, it's these VLANs, everything else, VLANs and the ports. It's pretty easy to follow if you just trace it out. Where it comes in handy is, say, here, we'll do it. Let me get to the RNC. We'll start with the RNC. Say this F1, say the site's up, F1 DOM's working, F2 DOM's not working. You've already replaced the DOM, you did the show module, you see the card and modem both up happy. Everything about it looks happy, right? I'm at the RNC, all the way over here. I need to be able to talk to the node IP. 146.246.138. Did I type that right? 10.140.246. What you get for having bad handwriting.
You get the RNC, right?
No,
Oh,
I'm trying
you're
to ping. I'm trying to ping the F2 DOM.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying? Say the site's up, the CM's up, the F1 DOM's up. Okay, say I can ping the node IP. For that thing to process, I also have to be able to hit this Ethernet 1 IP from the RNC. So say I do a ping on 10.224.17.194, and that came back. Just play along with me, Bridget.
Mm-hmm.
Say that came back 005. Okay? I know I have physical continuity because I can hit the node IP. But that would mean I'm missing a route somewhere. I could be missing one of the OSPF routes in the IPX, which you'd be contacting WDI, Arnet, somebody. I could be missing a static route here, static route here, static route here, or a static route here. You want to have to log into every one of those boxes and figure out which one's missing that route.
Or do a trace route.
That's what I'm saying. Do your trace route. Trace route 10.224.17.194. Alright. 10.21.45.192 is going to be from the RNC to the IPA. The next thing I see is 10.223.142.225. That's going to be from the IPA to the 10K. 113.239 and 10. Remember him? Our login IP for the SIU. From there, 10.227.18 and 52. The pretty little stars are always going to be your SB210. It doesn't play nice.
Mm.
Pretty little stars. There's my 52. So say it ended right there. Say it ended with 52, and then it just timed out because it couldn't get all the way to the end. You know you need to start in your F1 DOM. Say it timed out right. Timed out at this 10.233.145. You'd be missing a route in the 10K. If it timed out right there, you'd be missing an entry in your SIU.
Gotcha.
It's easy to figure out as long as you grasp the basic, how basic static IP routing works.
Mhm. Good.
You have to know IP routing and know how the crap connects together.
Mhm.
In other words, 10K, SOU, SB210, F1 DOM, F2 DOM. I mean, if you were to look at the full picture of all that crap, with all the nodes involved, it'll give you a headache.
That's the one you had up when we walked in?
Yeah, the one of them.
Yeah.
No.
I want to memorize that. Project.
Okay.
I mean, that's like going super detailed, going into every core node, breaking at the RNCs, the EMSs, the GMs, AECs,
Are we ever going to need it to that extent? You know,
This
so
part
you
right
know-
here, this whole core part,
Uh-huh.
you should never have to touch.
Okay.
IPX, the way they're building the configs in the IPX, let me pull one up real quick. You and Todd get to delve into these tomorrow.
Cool.
Mhm.
Where is it? If you look at it, which is, you'll have, like I said, you'll have the VLANs. This would be the local context, which is all your OAM stuff. See, XMU dual node OAM, LTE dual node OAM,
Mhm.
SB210 loopback, all OAM stuff. That'd be that one VLAN. Then you have a CDN context that has your actual bearer paths. That'd be the other VLAN. So your question earlier about Spirent, when you're testing both of those VLANs, you're testing from the local context in the IPA to the SB210, testing that VLAN. If you test the other one, you're testing your bearer path from the IPA to the SB210. But I mean, you take that, if you look, it's still basic IP route, this subnet to this IP. Guess what? This 113.239.59 and 213.2.3.59, instead of having VLAN 10 here, you'd have those multiple VLANs, and there'd be these two IPs in interfaces, and then there'd be two more from the other IPA. And then you can find your VLANs like the 571.15.71.
Do we have?
And then you can break that down and show, like those BFE sessions bouncing, how you can do it on the SB210. Show config IP, BFE, BFE neighbor. I'm sure you've seen that at some point or heard it. You can do the same thing from the IPA, where you can see if the BFE is up or down. You can also look at the port and break down the port and look at the actual circuit groups, to where you can see, like say on a true Ethernet backhaul, like that 764, say just you're having backhaul problems on that site. That site's bouncing, app unknown, LTE's bouncing. you could, if you had access to the IPX and the basic understanding of it,
Mhm.
you can get a quick list of other sites that are coming in to the IPX on that same circuit. So I could check these other 9 sites, see if they're bouncing.
So you got the same
If they're all bouncing,
And you have a
pretty obvious it's the link coming in from telco.
Mhm.
If it's just your one site bouncing, you could take, you see right here on these route statements where it says distance 250,
Mhm.
that's that, I was talking about metrics on the SB210. That's the same thing on the IPX side. This distance 250, that's my alternate path. So say I could switch the metrics in the SB210, switch the 2 routes, and I could switch it in the 2 IPX, move this distance 250 to the other router, and use the other path. Then you'll truly know, okay, do I have a problem with just one of my legs on my backhaul? If you're showing the same problem on both legs, pretty much narrows it down to your local drop or the equipment on site.
Hmm.
But it's still basic understanding of routing, digging your way through things, trace routing. You don't have to have a freaking CCNA problem.
now. But whenever they go to IQ6,
Well, if you think, they actually, some of it already has. If you look at the dual routing towards the MMEs, it's already got V6 routing in it.
but I'm waiting. That's going to be a hairy one too if they decide to change all this.
Oh, if they go all V6.
Yeah.
So are we thoroughly confused for one day?
Oh, sure.
You tear it up for a bit. Like you
I'm
put the
confused.
pieces together. Good to me.
It's not question and answer time yet.
Where is that document right there?
On the
That
desk-
one?
On his desktop.
The one that covers OSS, service on, IPX?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm
You
looking
on the
for it in your.
webpage?
Looking for it in your.
Look, right here.
JB. What is
Remember
it?
that main little page? Look right there. What's that say?
Okay, well, I'm looking for it on mine. Hold on. Okay, that was it.
OSS
How you-
and
I'm
service
apparently
on.
not in the right. Did you say crackhead?
Also,
Did you say crackhead?
on a less technical approach, I've gotten a hold of a couple of things from miscellaneous people. One of them, for example, you know they created a new NTEC group all upon itself that its entire life is SB210s and SIUs. The backhaul NTEC group. They have their own pretty little webpage too. Like simple stuff like how to see your transmit and receive light levels. Lots of good command information.
Where is that?
Okay? There's also links for all the CIQs that has all that IP information, site naming conventions, all that crap.
Where is that?
There's my favorite one that's actually in here somewhere. Oh, y'all have gotten that right. Field guys, software gateway, where you can download dual software, SB210 software. We guessed it to Jordan.
Is that the one Dustin sent out?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, doesn't it?
Long time ago.
Yeah.
But there's some other little stuff in here that might help y'all, like how to get your upgrade packages, easy way to find your CVs for dual replacements, some AMOS stuff, OSS RC IPs if you need those.
I've already done the upgrade on SBG.
Just mode licensing, where the LKFs actually live.
You have that upgrade, how to upgrade or update the SB210. They were telling me that they're probably going to start doing it on all the.
That's the one I was looking for. This is a really good one, especially if you're trying to teach yourself some AMOS.
Some who?
AMOS.
Anus.
Anus.
For example, this is,
The hell?
you understand how the Ericsson tech support works? Like you go to CNS like NTAC goes to CNS, once the CNS can't figure it out, they go to the PLM groups.
Mhm.
They have the-
This is PLM's troubleshooting wiki. So for example, you can say with Enode B health check, how do I look at antenna ports and RUs? And it actually show you how, with all the Amos commands stuff to look for. Handy shit. Handy shit. My goal in life is to figure out how on this Aircall page to get links to work. Kind of like they have on that one I was just on. On this one. Ooh.
Is it password protected? So we can get on that page?
But how they have links to other stuff. I'm going to try and get free time
Yeah, what's that?
where I can add a lot of this crap on there.
Well,
Is there
how,
anything else other than me cleaning up the way this crap's organized in here? More like EEGS, SIU.
The Amos commands for those LTs, like today. I get those. I mean, that'd help me with that one I have, and then I just set another one and take it all separate out.
Anyone else?
Me.
While I'm at it.
Yeah.
Bridget?
You're last.
Who? Don, who's that? Don?
Not Brad, sir.
Who's Prinzo?
It's,
Man, I just added all kinds of people.
Yeah,
Oh,
who
man.
is John Karofsky?
Me.
I talked to too many people. Tony. Bridget. Right one.
Did you know that?
Oh,
Grando, or not in Grando, Frank Ingram
he does?
just went over there before Christmas.
Where was he before?
Cricket, I think.
Just in case y'all don't have our homemade little version. So, was this somewhat beneficial?
It was.
For doing more of these, but more specific
It
things,
was
like
very
you know,
beneficial.
just focus on EEGS or just focus on backhaul? Something like that be better?
I think so.
I mean, this is good because it gives you
That's a brief.
Well, it gives me a chance to stand up and look while I'm talking and look back at y'all and see how glassy your eyes are.
Yeah, because it's just a lot to take in all of them.
Yeah, that's why I kind of just wanted to touch a little of everything, because there were certain parts where you could tell people were like, okay, and then certain parts that people were like,
So,